This program is brought to you by Link TV for educational and non-commercial use only. Mosaic, a daily news program from Link TV, presents a selection of news reports from independent and state-controlled broadcasters from throughout the Middle East.
The Palestinian president Mahmoud Abbas warned against what he described as a complete deterioration of the security situation in the Gaza Strip. This news comes as clashes continue to erupt between rival fighters from Hamas and Fateh in Gaza.
وأكثر من 100 جريح ذلك منذ صباح أمس ليرتفع إجمالي عدد القتلى خلال 5 أيام من الاشتباكات إلى أكثر من.
Since yesterday morning, more than 37 people have been killed and 100 others have been wounded in a new wave of violence, bringing the death toll to 50 in the past 5 days. Meanwhile, the Izdin Qassam brigades, the military wing for Hamas, issued an ultimatum to those it described as elements of the security forces receiving weapons from the U.S. and those Fateh fighters who are trying to stage a coup d'etat. Hamas ordered the security forces loyal to President Abbas to voluntarily surrender their arms by 7 p.m. next Friday or bear the responsibility for the consequences. In another development, more than 15 Palestinians were wounded, including some with serious injuries, when a peaceful demonstration turned violent after clashes erupted between rival fighters from Hamas and Fateh. The demonstration, which was organized by some Palestinian factions and the Egyptian security delegation, started at Palestine Square in central Gaza and ended where the clashes erupted west of the city. In a similar rally in Khan Yunis, more than 20 Palestinians, including some gunmen, were wounded in clashes between rival fighters from Fateh and Hamas. In addition, Palestinian factions organized a third protest in the city of Rafah in the southern Gaza Strip.
And as we mentioned earlier, the violence has spread outside of Gaza with reports of fighting in the West Bank city of Nablus. Our correspondent Walid Batrawi is in the West Bank and joins us now. Walid, can you start by giving us the latest on that fighting?
Yes, the fighting in Nablus had stopped. It was only when Fateh gunmen stormed into a building where a Hamas media office is located. They abducted at least 15 of those working in the office and took them to a nearby refugee camp. As we can see that this is an escalation that is alarming in the West Bank if it spreads to other parts of the West Bank, but still nothing to report in other parts of the West Bank, only in Nablus. In retaliation to this incident, a group of Hamas just went into a refugee camp near Nablus towards a house of a Fateh member. One person was injured according to medical sources in the city.
Now, President Mahmoud Abbas has said that what's happening is madness. He's called for a truce. But does he have the authority to rein in not only his own armed groups, but to have any effect on what's happening at the moment?
Well, President Abbas also said that he will take the appropriate measures, but without mentioning what these measures are or when he will take these measures. It seems that he is not in a position to take such measures in the near future, as the situation in Gaza is really out of control. It's not in the hands of Mahmoud Abbas or his security forces, and even it's not in the hands of Palestinian Prime Minister Ismail Haniyeh, who's also a Hamas leader. he also had called for an immediate ceasefire, but seems that no one is listening to what their leaders are saying. Most of the Palestinian police and security establishments are now in the hands of the Hamas militants. So it seems that whatever statements, political statements are being made, no one on the ground is taking action to stop the violence.
Walid, who would you say has the power, has the main authority there in the West Bank?
Well, the West Bank, the situation in the West Bank is totally different, as most of the militants are underground. They're not so armed like in the Gaza Strip. That is because of the Israeli occupation and the continuous Israeli incursions almost every night in the West Bank, different cities of the West Bank arresting people. And many of those militants have been already arrested by the Israelis. So it's difficult to say, for example, you know, in Ramallah, I would say that because President Mahmoud Abbas is present in Ramallah and because Fateh is very powerful in the city, there's less Hamas people. But for example, in the area of Jenin, you can find more Hamas than Fateh. So it depends on where you are in the West Bank. It's not a balance of power. It just depends on what actually is on the ground.
Walid Batrawi, thank you very much. Walid reporting live there from Ramallah.
So who's to blame for the crippled economy and the spiraling violence? Al Jazeera has been asking the people of Ramallah what they think.
Because, you know what, they make a deal, you know, and after 5 minutes, you know, it's not like nothing happened, broken, you know what? They make a deal, you know, it's like 6 times, 10 times they do it. We don't believe them now, you know what I'm saying? We don't believe what happened, you know what?
You have to have really seriousness in dealing with the situation, not just go there and sit around tables and make decisions. The decisions should be executed, and everybody has to look not to be selfish in ruling the country.
I don't know who's right and who's wrong. I don't know what they're fighting for, what reason. Do you know what they're fighting for? Nobody knows. Just when everybody have gun, shooting each other, still blood running everywhere.
All the Palestinian population must go to the street and raise their voice and say to the leadership, go away. And we have to hold the situation and say something and stop them from killing the Palestinian population.
Walid Ahmed Eido.
Walid Ahmed Eido is a new name on the list of the nation's martyrs. The name has been added to the list of others, including Rafi al-Hariri, Basil Falhan, Samir Qasir, George Hawi, Jubran Twaini, Pierre Jmeir, and his companions. Walid Ahmed Eido is a hero in the new battle for independence. He is a symbol of the Cedar Revolution. His life was taken away by the hand of terrorism on a street of the coast of Beirut.
كانت الساعة 5:30 عندما هز العاصمة بيروت انفجار تبين أنه استهدف عضو كتلة المستقبل.
It was 5:30 when the capital of Beirut was shaken by an explosion that targeted Walid Eido, a parliament member from the future bloc. He was martyred along with his son Khaled and 2 of their companions. This is the 6th explosion in a series of explosions since May 20th. It took place in the southern part of the Beirut amusement park, specifically the street separating the park from Najm Sports Club.
I was here. My house is close by. The explosion went off. The building was shaking by the explosion. I left my wife at home because nothing happened to us, and I came down. I found a woman and a man covered with blood. They were injured. They were walking like this. I got close to them. They leaned toward me, so we carried them and took them to the ambulance, which took them to the American University Hospital.
The explosion went off, and the smoke was rising into the sky. People were running in the streets.
When I arrived here, I found a severely injured woman. We carried her and put her in a Mercedes car. Then we transported another injured man from inside.
There was a lady who was severely injured inside the Chinese museum. We did not know the nature of her injuries, but the National Guard took her. They also took another injured person from inside. One of the walls inside had completely collapsed.
I was with my friends when the explosion went off. We thought it was an airstrike, so we put our hands over our heads and debris fell on us.
We will not kneel. We will remain standing. We will stay in our country and we will not leave.
Security forces immediately rushed to the scene and cordoned off the area while the National Guards began putting out the fires. The Red Cross transported the martyred and the wounded to the American University Hospital.
The supreme spiritual leader in Iraq, Ayatollah Sayyid Ali Sistani, called for self-restraint after two explosions targeted the two Imam Askary shrines, Hassan al-Askary and Ali al-Hadi in Samarra, leading to the collapse of the two minarets. Sheikh al-Yaqubi called on Iraqi fronts to remain committed to the National Accordance document and offered condolences to the head of the Shiite Waqf, Sheikh Salih al-Haidari, who said that the motivation behind the explosions is to ignite sectarian strife. A source from the office of the Shiite leader Muqtada al-Sadr called for calm and warned against being drawn into divisions. As a result of all this, the Sadr bloc decided to suspend its members from parliament until the government takes realistic and honest measures to reconstruct all Sunni and Shiite mosques, especially the two Imam Askary shrines. The Iraqi Prime Minister, Nouri al-Maliki, accused al-Qaeda and what he called Saddamists for being behind the explosion of the Imam Askary and the Imam Ali al-Hadi minarets in Samarra. All religious leaders appealed to citizens to maintain self-restraint.
تنظيم القاعدة ومن وصفهم بالصداميين بالوقوف وراء تفجير منارتي مرقدي الإمامين الحسن العسكري وعلي الهادي.
This crime occurred after progress was made in the enforcing the law security operations and the pursuit of terrorists and Saddamists in various areas of Iraq. They are looking for ways to blow dust in the face of these security operations, as they have been accustomed to do. Whenever they are cornered, they look for an outlet. The outlet this time was targeting the Muslim holy sites in order to create strife. I warn all citizens and the security agency that the policies that they rely on do not stop at the crime perpetrated against the two holy shrines in Samarra.
أحذر جميع المواطنين والأجهزة الأمنية بأن هؤلاء في سياستهم التي اعتمدوها لن يتوقفوا عند حدود.
Their sinful hands will extend to other areas. Thus, I appeal to all citizens. I have also ordered the security agency to take more cautionary measures to protect all sacred sites and mosques from sabotage aimed at creating strife.
لحماية كل العتبات المقدسة والمساجد من عبث الذين يعبثون من أجل إثارة الفتنة.
The Iraqi authorities imposed a curfew in Baghdad that will begin in about an hour. An Al-Arabiya correspondent reports that Interior Ministry commando forces are massively deploying in Baghdad in order to protect the mosques and Hussein's sacred sites in the capital. Intermittent clashes are erupting in Saidia and Biaa, west of Baghdad. Also, earlier, the Iraqi President Jalal Talabani headed an emergency meeting with Prime Minister Nouri al-Maliki, as well as Vice Ministers Tariq al-Hashemi and Adel Mahdi to discuss the matter of Samarra.
الهاشمي وعادل عبد المهدي للبحث في موضوع سامرا.
Turkish officials informed the Secretary General of NATO, Yakup Şefer, who is visiting Ankara, that Turkey will not keep its hands tied in dealing with threats by the Kurdistan Workers' Party. Meanwhile, the Turkish Prime Minister, Recep Tayyip Erdogan, indicated that he has no desire to carry out military operations outside the country unless it became impossible to purge members of the Workers' Party inside the country.
The main theme of the visit to Ankara by Jaap de Hoop Scheffer, the Secretary General of NATO, was to contain the differences between Turkey and the European Union after Ankara withdrew its special forces, ships and planes from European command. Turkey was dissatisfied with the EU because it had requested Turkey's military support in carrying out military operations while excluding it from the European Union's decision-making process. Another reason for Turkish dissatisfaction was Europe's lack of support in confronting the Kurdistan Workers' Party. This explains why Scheffer took advantage of the visit to give the green light to Turkey.
There is a mutual issue that links Scheffer's visit to the Security Summit. It is the Kurdistan Workers' Party, according to his statements, gave the green light to carry out military operations.
The Turkish Prime Minister Abdullah Gül gave a detailed presentation to Scheffer about all the dangers that the Kurdistan Workers' Party posed to Turkey. He spoke with him about the military and political mechanisms needed to purge this party, hoping that NATO would support any Turkish government decision on this matter. He reiterated Turkey's role in Kosovo and Afghanistan. Scheffer praised this role and gave Turkey total support in confronting terrorism.
In the name of the NATO countries, I offer my condolences to the Turkish victims of terrorist operations. We do not support the Workers' Party. Rather, we support the efforts to eliminate terrorism and to reach a comprehensive resolution to this problem.
The Prime Minister, the General Chief of Staff, the Head of the Army, the Foreign, Interior and Defense Ministers all attended the Security Summit to make appropriate decisions on how to carry out military operations in northern Iraq. This summit was based on the results of Scheffer's visit to Ankara, which observers considered as positive. The General Chief of Staff and the Army met to discuss the escalation by the Kurdistan Workers' Party. Their plan to eliminate the party indicates a political will to resolve this problem, especially after the results of the meeting between the NATO Secretary General, the Prime Minister, the General Chief of Staff, as well as the Defense and Foreign Ministers.
محمد العباسي العالم أنقرة.
A sudden withdrawal by the Peshmerga forces from the Biaa and Amal neighborhoods west of Baghdad caused chaos and panic among the residents there. Backed by units from the Interior Ministry's Maghawir forces, a terrorist militia group affiliated with Al-Mahdi army was immediately deployed in the Biaa neighborhood to fill in the security vacuum left behind the withdrawing Peshmerga forces. The Al-Mahdi militias took over 3 homes and seized control of the Fateh Pasha Mosque, where they raised black and green flags on its rooftop.
The security plan in Iraq has entered its 4th month, and the facts on the ground have not changed. The security plan has tremendously failed to bring down the number of Iraqi civilians killed in the streets of Baghdad, and it also failed to prevent the return of death squads to the capital. Armed groups continue to rule the streets of Baghdad, where the residents continue to live in fear and chaos. Al-Mahdi militias were deployed in the Biaa and Amal neighborhoods, where they carried out home raids, attacked mosques, and spread fear among the residents. This news came after an unexpected withdrawal of the Peshmerga forces, which created a security vacuum. Backed by the Interior Ministry's Maghawir forces, armed militias from Al-Mahdi army quickly rolled into the town and seized control of key parts there. The militias threatened to kill the residents, forced families out of their homes, and used loudspeakers to announce messages of sectarian slurs. They also took over 3 homes and seized control of Fateh Pasha Mosque, where they raised black and green flags on its rooftop. Fearing for their lives, several families fled their homes and sought refuge in neighboring towns. The Interior Minister's Mughawir forces and Al-Mahdi army militias seized control of key areas in the predominantly Sunni Amal neighborhood, where they kidnapped and killed several local residents. During the past 4 years, Baghdad has been busy holding daily funeral processions for the dozens of its martyrs killed by armed militias affiliated with law enforcement agencies. The security plan in Baghdad has failed to stop the violence, which is taking a heavy toll on Iraqi civilians. The deteriorating security situation has a direct impact on the political process in the country. This news comes as Iraqi politicians continue to hold talks and lobby for the National Reconciliation Initiative, which has not produced any tangible results on the ground.
In a statement issued to Baghdad's satellite channel, Abed Karim Samrai, a representative from Iraq's Accordance Front and the vice president for the Security and Defense Committee inside the Iraqi parliament, confirmed that he made contact with the concerned authorities to help put an end to the terrorist activities in the Biaa and Amel neighborhoods, but he has not received a response in this regard.
The vital Pakistani town of Tank, situated along the Afghan borders, was once full of activities, but now has fallen victim to the savageness of violence and was transformed into a ghost town after its residents were forced to flee from it. We leave you with Amal al-Zahrani.
People were indiscriminately killed during the fierce battles between the Pakistani government and the Taliban movement. The Pakistani town of Tank, near the northwestern border, became the battlefield for these clashes. The town, which was full of life and activities, became like a ghost town. It was inhabited by 150,000 people, but now most of them have left. Those who stayed in town can't have peace of mind.
The situation in Tank is very bad. Citizens can't move freely and they can't visit friends and relatives. People's lives, property and dignity are not safe here.
الأمن غاب فلم يعد هناك من ملاذ آمن في بلدة تانك.
Security is absent. There is no safe place in the town of Tank. Nothing has been spared from the fierce battles between the Taliban and the Pakistani government. People and buildings have been hit in the fighting. The town's buildings are now empty, including its governmental and commercial buildings and schools. No solution has been reached yet.
I suggest that we form a joint committee of representatives from the district municipalities and political authorities to study the situation and provide a solution.
Tank has gradually transformed into a ghost town with no tangible solution on the horizon.
And now we take a look at the man who will be Israel's 9th president, Shimon Peres. Shimon Peres is a two-time prime minister and Nobel Prize winner who was featured prominently in Israel's history for more than half a century. Born in Poland in 1923, the 84-year-old Peres immigrated to Palestine when he was 11. He met Israel's founding father, David Ben-Gurion, while hitchhiking and became his political protege. At the age of 29, Peres was appointed Director General of Israel's fledgling defense ministry by Ben-Gurion and is considered the father of Israel's nuclear program, as well as one of the creators of Israel's illustrious aircraft industries. A member of parliament since 1959, Peres headed the Labour Party from 1977 until his perennial rival Yitzhak Rabin took over in 1992. As Labour head, Peres was never able to lead his party into a total victory in the Knesset, though he did become prime minister from 1984 to 1986 in a power-sharing deal with Likud's Yitzhak Shamir. The highlight of his career came when in 1994 he was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize along with Rabin and late Palestinian leader Yasser Arafat for his key role in initiating and negotiating the 1993 Oslo Peace Accords with the Palestinians. A year after winning the prize, Peres became premier again after Rabin was assassinated by an opponent of the controversial Accords in November 1995. He lost the next election shortly thereafter to Likud's Benjamin Netanyahu in May 1996 in one of Israel's most closely contested races ever. He also lost to Moshe Katsav in the presidential elections 7 years ago in what many had seen as a shoo-in for Peres, solidifying his image in many eyes as a perennial loser. Most recently, Peres switched from his longtime home, the Labour Party, to Kadima, and subsequently became vice premier when Ehud Olmert took over the reins of power. Peres supporters hope today's victory helps repair his reputation as a serial loser and helps rehabilitate the office of the presidency, with the two past incumbents forced out over scandal.
And now we go back to Leah Zinder, who's here in the studio. Leah, what are the political repercussions of today's presidential vote?
Well, Laura, first of all, of course, there's the man, Shimon Peres himself, with his overweening ambitions, some would say. He will no doubt use the presidency as a springboard for launching extensive diplomatic activity across the world, something that could cause problems and headaches for Ehud Olmert, as well as the next prime minister, whether it's Benjamin Netanyahu or Ehud Barak. But above all, it must be said this was a great day for Prime Minister Ehud Olmert. He met today with the Kadima Knesset faction just ahead of the presidential vote. I think we're seeing the pictures right now. And as I said, Olmert worked very hard for Peres' victory today. And I don't know, it may be the power of ceremony and ritual, but today's vote, with the drama and all the emotion and the orderly democratic process, all came together to give a new sense of momentum to Olmert's very much beleaguered government. And let's remember that followed last night's victory by Ehud Barak in Labour, something that Olmert badly wanted. He needs a strong and dominant defence minister at his side at this time. Peres' election also opens up a new slot in Olmert's cabinet, which could give him more flexibility in his negotiations with Barak, who in turn is anxious to bring in one more minister from Labour into the cabinet with him. So just ahead is the cabinet reshuffle, but when all is said and done, today is Shimon Peres' day. Let's hear what Labour cabinet Minister Yitzhak Herzog, who is of course himself the son of a former president, had to say about Shimon Peres.
I think Shimon Peres will be a very great president. I think he will add a lot of dignity to the state of Israel.
Now, as I say, you grew up as the son of a president. What are the qualities that are required, in your view, of a president?
Well, first of all, I think he ought to represent the whole nation. He should be connected to all layers of Israeli society. He should know the history, be part of the history in the making of the state of Israel, and should symbolize something to the people.
Can I ask you just one more personal question? What memories do you have from the president's residence in Jerusalem?
I was a student, so I was far away. I tried to be as far away as possible, although it was a very pleasant period. And of course, I think my parents did a lot, and my father did a lot, and I have wonderful recollections from that period.
Thank you once again, Leah.
Thank you.
Well, what do Israelis think about Shimon Peres becoming the next president of the state? Leah Stern asked the opinion of these Jerusalem residents.
Wait, when did it happen?
Several minutes ago.
Well, who is it?
Shimon Peres.
Magiello. Even from America, he's given a lot of service to the country, and he really, at this point in his life, deserves it. So, Mazal Tov, Shimon.
For me, it's good news.
He's the right man for the job?
He's the best man for the job.
Why?
He was the most appropriate. I think he'll bring us the most prestige internationally. He was the right man at the right time.
Yes, I'm happy about that. Why?
I'm not happy why we need a new president. That's the truth. I mean, I'm sorry that we need a new president, but I'm glad for Shimon Peres that he can finalize his days with something that he's been dreaming and hoping for and that he wants to do.
I've known him since I was a little girl. I want to see some new face. He has nothing to say to me. He has nothing to bring to the world. We've heard him. He hasn't gotten any success in anything. So what's the big deal? Why are you so excited about the new president?
I would have liked a woman president, but you know, I suppose Shimon Peres is deserving enough.
He won something at least. He never seems to win anything, but no, I prefer him. I think he's the best of the candidates, the most adequate, the most well-equipped, I suppose.
We're all very happy to hear the good news, and finally Shimon Peres is winning.
I think he's been a politician in our country for a long time, and I think he could be better than other presidents we've had.
I don't know yet, because he has to prove something, but why not? Because it's a president in Israel. It's not a very important thing like prime minister.
I'm not sure exactly what the role of the president is in this country, and I think it's just a figurehead.
The views expressed on Mosaic are those of the participating broadcasters, not Link TV or its sponsors. Please visit linktv.org/Mosaic for more information about these broadcasters or to view previous Mosaic programs, obtain program transcripts, or receive the weekly Mosaic Intelligence Report. Mosaic is made possible by a grant from the William and Flora Hewlett Foundation. Additional support is provided by the Firedoll Foundation, the Otto Haas Charitable Trust, and by committed Link TV viewers like you. This program was brought to you by Link TV for educational and non-commercial use only. Link TV is the only U.S. television network devoted to global and national news, with uncompromising documentaries and diverse cultural programs which connect you to the world.